Hey everyone, welcome to another installment of Harry Potter Theory. In today's video, we're going to be discussing the moral leanings of Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore, beloved Hogwarts Professor and eventual Headmaster, loyal member of the Order of the Phoenix, and potentially Dark Wizard? Now, don't get me wrong, Dumbledore was a majorly positive influence on our dear boy Harry, providing him with guidance in the wizarding world and taking a special interest in the boy who lived upon its arrival at Hogwarts. I also want to make my stance on Dumbledore abundantly clear. He's one of my favourite characters, so this is not a shot at him. This is just a fun theory to explore. But what if Dumbledore's influence, his interest in Harry, came from a selfish, dark place rather than a selfless, compassionate one? Could it be that Albus Dumbledore only mentored Harry, only ever did things that appeared good in general to satisfy his own need to be clever, to be powerful, and ultimately to achieve glory? Let's take a look at the facts. I've got 3 for you today. Number 1. If Dumbledore truly cared for Harry, why did he abuse him so often? I don't mean abuse in the physical sense, of course, although there were quite a few times where he sent Harry off to do some very questionable, very dangerous things, but in terms of emotional abuse, Dumbledore left Harry alone to suffer almost too many times to count. The first time was when Harry was just a baby. For some odd reason, not agreed upon by anyone else, I might add, namely Minerva McGonagall and Hagrid, Dumbledore chose to place a newly orphaned infant Harry in the care of the Dursleys. He did this knowing of the volatile and strained relationship between Lily Potter, Harry's mother, and her sister Petunia. And with witches like Arabella Figg, the Dursleys' neighbour who would frequently care for Harry, when the Dursleys would go out to do something fun without Harry, of course, Dumbledore was certainly aware of how Harry was being treated over at number 4 Privet Drive. I mean, Harry's letter of acceptance to Hogwarts was literally made out to Mr. H. Potter, the cupboard under the stairs, number 4 Privet Drive. So Dumbledore clearly knew of the abuse Harry was experiencing. And yet, he remained in the care of the Dursleys for an entire decade, and no one seemed to be too concerned when he continued to return to Privet Drive each and every summer either. But yes, I know what you're thinking. Didn't Harry have to live there in order to remain safe? Dumbledore even explains this to Harry himself. While you can still call home the place where your mother's blood dwells, there you cannot be touched or harmed by Voldemort. He shed her blood, but it lives on in you and her sister. Her blood became your refuge. You need return there only once a year, but as long as you can still call it home, there he cannot hurt you. So, according to Dumbledore, at least, he had to be there. We know the power of love is real in Harry Potter, but living with the Dursleys, is that bit actually true? Or is this just another manipulation tactic used by Dumbledore as part of his scheme? Dumbledore also continued to be somewhat indifferent and mistrusting of Harry as the years progressed, despite claiming to care for him. He didn't seem to believe Harry when he said he didn't put his own name into the Goblet of Fire, for instance. And then, after the Triwizard Tournament ended, an incredibly traumatic event for Harry, instead of explaining to Harry his theory behind his link to Voldemort, or merely even comforting Harry, what did he do instead? He ignored him. Later, he claimed he only did this to keep Harry safe, but he actually didn't want Harry to know that he would inevitably have to die. More on this in a second. Dumbledore then continued to withhold important information from him right up until his death, leaving a teenage Harry to decipher complex riddles and clues, hunt down dangerous magical items, and ultimately come up against one of the most powerful dark wizards of all time, Voldemort. It's also worth pointing out that Dumbledore has also earned a lot of disapproval from fans over the years, who believed he mentored Harry for only one despicable reason: to be raised like a pig for slaughter. We have protected him because it has been essential to teach him, to raise him, to let him try his strength, said Dumbledore, his eyes still tight shut. Meanwhile, the connection between them grows ever stronger, a parasitic growth. Sometimes I have thought he suspects it himself. If I know him, he will have arranged matters so that when he does set out to meet his death, it will truly mean the end of Voldemort. Dumbledore opened his eyes. Snape looked horrified. You have kept him alive so that he can die at the right moment? Don't be shocked, Severus. How many men and women have you watched die? Dumbledore knew, and quite frankly didn't sound too distraught, about the fact that Harry would have to give his life in order to defeat Voldemort. He provided him with just enough guidance to have him become a compassionate, powerful young wizard who would be willing to sacrifice himself for the greater good. Number 2. The wizards who Dumbledore chose to be loyal to was also questionable, to say the least. The most obvious example is, of course, Dumbledore's affiliation with the infamous wizard Gellert Grindelwald, who was considered to be one of the most dangerous wizards of all time. Grindelwald and Dumbledore struck up an intense relationship as young men over their shared interest in power and the pursuit of the 3 Deathly Hallows. While Dumbledore eventually realized how far into dark magic and hate Grindelwald was willing to take his ideologies, it took decades before he was willing to challenge him in a duel. He eventually did in 1945 at the height of Grindelwald's power. But why did it take so long, you might ask? Likely a couple of reasons. Since the release of the books, J.K. Rowling has revealed that Dumbledore was in fact in love with Grindelwald. Then, one of their final confrontations before going their separate ways as young men led to the death of Dumbledore's sister, Ariana. So, he was in love with a psychopath, and not even the death of a family member was enough to make him go after him. Quite an unwavering loyalty to a very wicked wizard, not the best look for Dumbledore. On a much lesser scale, in terms of loyalties to dark wizards, Dumbledore seemed to have interesting taste when it came to who he employed at Hogwarts. Obviously, he also gave well-intentioned and talented magical folks career opportunities, the likes of Hagrid and Sybil Trelawney falling into the well-intentioned category, and professors like Remus Lupin falling into the talented and good category. But he also chose wizards like Quirrell and Horace Slughorn to take up postings at Hogwarts. It's hard to believe that a wizard with Dumbledore's experience and power wouldn't have been able to tell that something was really quite off about Quirrell. I mean, the man had Voldemort's soul living on the back of his head. Dumbledore also went quite out of his way to offer Slughorn a job. Now, I know he wanted Slughorn's help in determining exactly how Voldemort split his soul, but did he really have to give him a paying job in order to get that information out of him? After all, Slughorn was a man of questionable morality, putting together a club for his most talented students, showing a shallow enthusiasm for knowing students who would go on to be great, despite seeing darkness in some of them, including, you guessed it, a young Tom Riddle. On the flip side of that coin, Dumbledore didn't always show the most loyalty towards otherwise good wizards. For example, being in the Order of the Phoenix and watching him come up in Hogwarts with James Potter, I would have expected Dumbledore to ask more questions when it came to Sirius Black and the death of James and Lily. Not only did he do nothing to uncover the truth of what happened before Sirius was imprisoned in Azkaban, Dumbledore even went as far as to allow Dementors to roam school grounds in an effort to protect students after Sirius escaped from prison. Number 3. The third and final piece of evidence that I've got for you guys today is, I would say, his most unforgivable, the mistreatment of his family. We've already covered the fact that he was part of the duel that led to the death of his younger sister, Ariana. Whether he was at fault for the spell that killed her or not remains beside the point. If he hadn't been so careless around his family, you could argue that the tragedy could have been avoided altogether. But even before that, as a young man filled with pride, he resented that he must care for his damaged sister after she accidentally killed their mother in an outburst of uncontrollable magic. In order to come take care of Ariana, Albus had to cancel a trip around the world with his friend, Ulfias Doge. Oh, the horrors. No, not really. And from my perspective, he seems much more distraught over the loss of his freedom than the loss of his mother. I resented it, Harry. Dumbledore stated it baldly, coldly. He was looking now, over the top of Harry's head, into the distance. I was gifted. I was brilliant. I wanted to escape. I wanted to shine. I wanted glory. Do not misunderstand me, he said, and pain crossed the face so that he looked ancient again. I loved them. I loved my parents. I loved my brother and my sister. But I was selfish, Harry. More selfish than you, who are a remarkably selfless person, could possibly imagine. So that, when my mother died and I was left the responsibility of a damaged sister and a wayward brother, I returned to my village in anger and bitterness. Trapped and wasted, I thought. So there you have it. 3 things that point to Albus Dumbledore potentially being more evil than any of us had previously expected. Did I miss any examples of Dumbledore acting truly evil, or do you think this is a completely crazy theory? After all, even Harry managed to find the good in Dumbledore, forgiving him when they meet in Limbo at King's Cross in the Deathly Hallows. Regardless, let me know your thoughts on this one in the comments below, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, Dumbledore's army still recruiting.